If I had a penny for every instance of racial injustice I couldn't see, I'd be able to travel back in time to tell the man on the penny not to bother. Ain't shit changed. Written into the tomes of our histories, our beginnings, lie the words, "You shall always suffer fools, ills, tragedies." They will call you black, not because of the darkness of your skin, but the shadows they will cast over your light in the hopes of manipulating you into believing you aren't worthy of the sun. I laugh because they tried it. My father never came home, for he never knew what home was, because a bullet took his home faster than he could learn. My son, I think about cutting off his hands. You can't be killed for holding something when you can't hold, period. My daughter's gone missing, no one cares. My mother's melanin protects her scars, but darkens them more in doing so. And sometimes I think maybe that's the key, but wait, we don't become invisible with darkness, only hidden, ready to attack, strike, snap, smoke, kill, break, beat, and all of the other words they've placed unto us, as if they haven't been laying waste to us. Being black is a blessing. Being black is distressing.
Black bodies, black premier and black goddess, gentleman goes, halcyon rose, incandescent light, too bright for this time. Keep your eye on the Holy Ghost. Black bodies, black premier and black goddess, stifled as he grows, silenced as she blows, incandescent light, too bright for this time. Keep your eye on the Holy Ghost.
I think living in my black body means that I'm constantly aware of what I should not be. I think a lot of times black people will define themselves in opposition to stereotypes or certain preconceived notions of people. So I think for the beginning of my life, I spent a lot of time thinking, all right, this is what is expected, so let me kind of go against the grain. And then I think after a while I realized that in itself is restricting. So once I kind of let go of those things and let go of the binary, I think, of what is and what's not, I kind of got to see who Simone was. And it's been interesting figuring that out. As I said, I'm 20 years old, so I don't proclaim to have all the answers, and I don't think you have them at any age, really. But existing in this black body, I think of Ta-Nehisi Coates, his words about being black and living in a black body. It means not really having control over a lot of times. So, police brutality, not having your agency taken away from you. And fortunately, I haven't experienced any of that, but I think as part of the community, we see that tangentially. Our family members or friends experiencing things like that. It really takes root inside of you. You kind of think about what it means not to have control over your own body, or for other people to really not see you as valuable because of this thing that we've constructed called race.
And I'm laughing just simply because where do you start? I don't know where you start. How does one put that into a soundbite, a complete sentence? I mean, seriously, where do you start? Man, even if the camera wasn't rolling and I had pen and paper and had all day to jot down my thoughts on what it means to be black in America, I would still struggle with where to start. If there was a gun to my head and I had to come up with something quick, the first thing off the top of my head is being black in America means that when you are first viewed by someone, regardless of their color, the vast majority of the time there's an automatic judgment made about you already. You know, there's no hiding this. You can see it from across the street. There are people who will see you and just make automatic assumptions. The darker you are, the more menacing, you know.
Sometimes it can be an experience where it's like you're watching yourself live life. So it's this idea that like being black in America, or just in these current circumstances, it's this idea of having like a delayed reaction. So, you know, you can't just go from here to here. You have to have some editing going on. You know, in the workplace, in life, in public, everybody's on edge when they meet you. So it's this idea that you have to kind of prove to them, hey, I'm okay. Like it's it's kind of like when you're in like a stressful situation and you just kind of stick your arms out like this to, you know, kind of distance yourself from whatever immediate danger you think may be there. That's kind of what it's like, you know. It's like you're like this, okay, all right, let me assess the situation. Okay, smile. You know, it's a lot of, and you do it on a subconscious level. You don't even realize you're doing it.
In that amount of time, how do you feel? What's going on inside of your body?
I think immediately it's a nervous feeling because you know, okay, this can go left or this can go right. And I think it's also this ability of you not really being true to yourself. And I talk to my best friend a lot, and a couple of years ago, which is interesting because comedically I have the advantage of having to every now and again try to figure out who I am. But a lot of times when you go through this world, you have to put so many masks on just to navigate. So I had this summer where I just kind of took every mask off and I was really raw, really transparent. But I found that people connected with that truth, you know, better than when I had the mask on. But you can only navigate through life so long going like that, then you have to put the mask back on. But I think there's this feeling of nervousness, anxiety. You know, it's just like, okay, will I be viewed as a threat? And I think you're always on the defense because you're not able to play offense. Because if you play offense, you get the perception of who does he think he is, or you know, things like that. So it's a very defensive way of navigating through life.
I have talked to my son. I said, boy, you are a young black man. Society might give you one chance, but after that, they will throw your little black behind away. What I wanted to make sure my son understands is that you got to work within the rules. You got to keep your nose clean. You got to do all those things to not be thrown in the category of a useless black man. I want to be able to just go through life doing the same thing everyone else does. My dreams are synonymous with everyone else's dreams. Now, there are obstacles. I probably could point to where I was actively discriminated against, or maybe sometimes imagined discrimination, but I don't want to continue creating enemies. I don't want to continue creating a chasm or division in this country. One of the reasons that I'm very displeased right now with our political situation is that we're continuing division. I'll give you an example. I listen to conservative radio. I won't name the station. But prior to the election last year, a black man called. He identifies himself as African American. But the one thing he said that really bothered me, he says, look, Mr. Trump is going to get my vote. He's trying to put this country back together. There's nothing he could do that would make me not vote for him. He goes on to say, he could call me the N-word all day long and he will still get my vote. My hair caught on fire. I think I'm screaming at the radio at this point. I said, fool, it's not Trump who's going to call you the N-word. It's Billy Bob. And you're going to want to hit Billy Bob in his mouth. Until the hearts change, we're going to continue to have hatred or division, derision, bubbling over.
You shouldn't have to take on the burden of having to navigate either microaggressions or ignorant statements and also have to be politically correct about it. As much as I love Michelle Obama and she made a statement about, when they go low, we go high. And I love that sentiment, but I don't know if I can totally buy in because it's a double whammy on black communities to have to do both of those things.
We live in a world that is complicated, and in many ways we've made it more complicated than it needs to be. If we would just treat each other the way we want to be treated, then skin color wouldn't matter, college degrees wouldn't matter, bank accounts wouldn't matter, right? None of that matters if you just treat people with respect and treat people exactly the way you want to be treated. And if you can do that, none of this other stuff that none of us can change about ourselves or each other will make any difference whatsoever. I do think that we can look statistically at how we as a black community have been treated in the criminal justice system, economically, in positions of power, in elected positions. I mean, you name the system, and I can probably find pretty good statistics that demonstrate disparity, because disparity is real, disparity exists, and we have to figure out ways to combat disparity when we root it out and recognize it is there.
Black people, by and large, will accept you no matter what. White people, by and large, you have to work at it. And so, and that's another reason I identify as black, because I consider black people better people. Don't tell my wife I said that. But she knows. The thing about the Trump election, which has shown everybody, is that, the United States really is racist. And we thought this was post-racial? No, hell no. But it's been eye-opening experience for people like her. That, you might have been right. There is racism where I didn't see it.
I never gave myself time to just be. Most young individuals, you have time to kind of party and do these carefree things. And for me, there's always been a pressure to be better than or make sure that I excel in everything that I do, because as a black woman, I feel like the world expects me not to. So it's like I have to prove everybody wrong in a situation. I have to fight to not fall into your stereotype in a situation, and things as small as work. I tell my boyfriend all the time, one of the things that drives me crazy is we are in a 3-story building. And we have what is kind of like a call center floor, which is on the 3rd floor. The 2nd floor is more of like the executives and everything. And something as small as getting on an elevator and a white person selecting my floor for me and automatically assuming that I'm going to the 3rd floor, because in their brain, oh, okay, this is where she works. She's not on the executive floor. And it's those little things that just make me feel like I constantly have to be better. I constantly have to be proving you guys wrong. I constantly have to do these things, and that's a lot of pressure. to take on. I don't think that that is something that white people or other races have to go through. You know what I mean? I think that that's something that we pick up at a very young age as Black women or Black people, period. We're told or we're taught that we have to be better than. We have to fight these stereotypes. We started way at the negative when someone else started up here. We're fighting to catch up.
Being Black, being an American, you know from the jump you have to work hard. I mean, we've all heard the phrase, you gotta work twice as hard, just go half as far. And that's one thing that's instilled in you early on.
I'm very, very fortunate to have the parents that I do, because they instilled in us from the very beginning to be Black and successful in this country. Being good enough is not good enough. You're going to have to be better. You're going to have to excel. I don't care what it is.
My parents coming here as immigrants, I think, gave me a different perspective as to what it means to be Black. I think people don't understand that Black comes in a lot of different shades, a lot of different cultures. But my dad, one of the things he always said was, regardless of how people treat you, you should continue working as hard as you can. And his perspective was interesting because he would go on to say things like, you know, make sure you stay away from those people, right? And those people was actually usually African Americans, right? And he wasn't, I don't think he was biased or prejudiced. I think he very much was saying that he wanted me to find a way to gain from a system that often perceived Black people that weren't necessarily knowledgeable of their African ancestry. He wanted me to benefit or take advantage of a system that was, in a way, negatively perceiving what Black people were. And I think my dad was very much saying that if I seize the academic opportunities given to me, then I might have some leverage. When I was growing up, my dad was very, he's crazy, I'm gonna say, in terms of educational attainment. He wanted me to go straight to church. If I was doing athletic events, usually it would be my mom that would be taking me to those things, but he wanted me to do all the things that people would say white people were doing, which I knew wasn't the case, right? I would come home with my report card, and he would always ask me, "Hey, so how'd you do on your?" I'm gonna play my dad for a second. So I would first show the report card to my mom, and she'd say, like, "Well, good job, you got A/B on them," right? And then I show it to my dad. And there'd be like there'd be like some 88s, not even like 80s, low 80s, it'd be 88s. And he'd be like, "What is this nonsense? Why do you have me on your report card?" And every 6-week period, that's what I was going through, right? And I remember him always telling me that if I really wanted to achieve, if I wanted to be better than the perceived Black person, that I would have to do a series of things, right? So for example, getting all A's on my report card. My dad always was very fond of me not sagging my pants, right? And not doing all these things that are stereotypical of Black culture, right? And he always was very much about doing all the things that white people were doing, because then that would empower me to do things that Black people supposedly couldn't do. So he always talked about going to Harvard. He always talked about getting a PhD. He always talked about, I would say, doing things that a lot of my other friends thought were not possibilities. It was not until I got out of high school, right, and my parents weren't there, and I had less of that circle that I'd grown up with, especially living on the East Coast, that I really understood kind of what my dad meant, I guess at a deeper level, while still kind of experiencing for the first time, while experiencing in a strong way, in a very frustrating way, these kind of prejudices and these kind of assumptions and this false symbolic view of what being Black meant. I had done everything my dad said that I should do. And regardless of that, still being mistreated, I'm not gonna walk around with a Harvard, with a Harvard seal posted on my forehead, right? But before I can even open my mouth, you know, there are ways that you're treated. There are these assumptions, right? There are things that are said. There are things that are very hard to put into words. Unless you're a person of color, it's very hard to understand.
I identify as a cisgender black woman in this country. I'm an immigrant. So Haile Selassie, I mentioned and was quoted in the song War by Bob Marley, until the color of a man's skin is as insignificant as the color of his eyes, everywhere is war. Like, we don't make judgments about the character and quality and value worth of a human being based on the color of their eyes. We might like certain color eyes, that's fine. Like, you know, but we don't make those type of judgments based on that. So obviously we know race is a social construct, sociological construct. And if it hadn't been created as a sociological construct, then it wouldn't matter any more than the color of our eyes. But it was brought up as a sociological construct, and the consequences of it have been real, have been ongoing, have been devastating and detrimental to generations. And so race does matter.
You have the feeling and the perception of what it is more to be human than other people, because humanity is so raw, is so rough, is so unpredictable. And because you live through that, you then understand and appreciate and can then pass on that appreciation for the human condition, because your experience is so much richer and deeper than the experience of the people who, because of their standing, haven't been allowed to experience humanity in its most raw emotional form. And I think that probably has a lot to do with why, you know, our voices and our emotions are good parts and probably are bad parts to white people, is that we don't give a shit. What I mean is, there are things we can talk about that we know really don't matter in the great scheme of things. What matters is in here. But that in here, in other people, non-people of color, has been so buried under layer and layer and layer of modernization and technology and education that they lose sight of it.
Growing up, being black was what it meant to be cool. A lot of the schools that I went to were either highly Hispanic or had few pockets of Caucasian students. The African American students and population of the schools that I went to was always small, being from either 5 to about 10%. Most of these students were cool in some type of way, some type of sort of fashion. Growing up, I didn't really think of myself as black. I didn't see a lot of black faces that were similar to mine. I didn't see a lot of black teachers that were similar to mine. It didn't really hit me until about high school, when I started seeing more police brutality and seeing more Black death portrayed in the media. It went from being fun to being myself when I was younger to being aware and maybe scared of what it means to grow up being black. It made me feel lost a little bit, like a split personality kind of. Like, we had a lot of kind of debate going on what it means to be American, But then you also had what it meant to be African American, what it meant to be black, what it meant to be yourself. And you realize that sometimes these things didn't line up. Sometimes that you can be African American, but people still want you to be just generic American. And these values always didn't coincide.
There is some schizophrenic behavior in being black. And so when I walk out of the door every day, I have to prepare myself to what is going to be the crazy that I'm going to have to face. And so I have to go out and be able to manage the white community that I'm engaged in, from very powerful people to people who are at the ends of their ropes and need my assistance. And then I need to know how to deal with people who lived in historic East Austin, because everybody talks differently. And so I call it a schizophrenic nature that I have to have. I've got to be able to talk to the historic East Austin people that talk very differently than I do, or you do, or a lot of people do. But I've got to be able to do that in an authentic way. And then I have to also be able to be that other person that speaks to the powerful people and be able to speak in a language that they can understand. And I don't think people understand how tiring that gets to do that and have to manipulate that. If you only have to do one language, and I'm talking about English now, if you only have to deal with one language, and if people don't understand you, they don't say, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. But the people that you're talking to are more importantly talking about, they speak a whole nother language and they have no idea, and they're not going to say what is it you're talking about. So I have to be that intermediary and say, this is what they're saying.
A tendency that happens with, especially when we're placed in white environments or environments outside of ourselves, is we end up having to teach. And for me, I feel like when I have to teach and I come home and I don't have a lot of people here to support me, then I have to completely deconstruct and reconstruct myself to make sure that I can be sound enough to go back out the next day. And so if I'm spending all of my energy teaching you something that even if you didn't learn it, something that you could be learning better, something that you can Google sometimes, something that you, if you just paid a little bit more attention and recognize the fact that you're making certain choices, then you can make things a little bit better for a lot of people. But it's still not my job as an African American woman to teach you. And having to be, people know me as the one who's like, I might seem a little nice and sweet, but I will I will tag you, and I don't have a problem doing that, saying, hey, look, you know what? No, I'm not going to teach you this. There are plenty of books, there are podcasts, there are things you can watch on TV that will teach you all the things you want to know about it. Whether you choose to believe it and work with it, is not, it impacts me some, but if you don't want to do that yourself, don't rely on me to be the one to do it for you.
There are so many layers of bullshit that you have to go through to be who you are. To buy a house. To just piddle online if you want to. I guess normal people would say bureaucracy, but it's more than that. It's structure. And black people, for some reason, we take that in stride. We know we've got to learn to scale it and to master it. But we also know that it's just structure. It's not the cornbread and chicken and the watermelon of life. And that's what knowledge is. It's not so much understanding the structure. It's the essential joining of the spirit with the structure. It's joining it's understanding the structure is there for you, not against you. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how to explain it. I would think that it's probably the way a mathematician feels when they got this abstract formula they've been working on, but now they understand what the formula explains. It explains why we have a black hole. We couldn't fathom what a black hole was, but now the formula sort of puts it out there for you, but you have to know what goes into the formula. And people go to their graves basically still trying to figure that out. And I think that's a story. I mean, we're starting to see these stories come out now, right? What was it called? Hidden Figures? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. How come I can't do what they do and be myself? When can I stop being black? Or when can I stop being not white? Or whatever. Everybody should know what it feels like to be you and not somebody else's interpretation of you. And many of us will go to our graves never knowing that. And that's the shame of the human condition. But it is what we all want to be, ultimately, I think. And, I think that's what MLK was talking about when he said, I have a dream. That's the dream.
I grew up in kind of the south side of Austin, and I was in a program called FFA, Future Farmers of America. And as you can imagine, it's about agriculture and about livestock animals. There's not very many black people in that program. So I was one of the few, and when we go to livestock shows, there's not many people that look like me. And my mother was taking one of my friends home who is Caucasian. She is Caucasian and Hispanic. And we were riding in the car, and we get out to go to a convenience store. And like I said, I didn't think nothing of it. I was wearing my hoodie, I had an all black hoodie on, pants on, just coming from the show. And my mom looks at me and she tells me to take off my hoodie before I go into the convenience store. And when she said it, I was just like, why? It didn't make much sense to me. And she was like, they might think you're robbing the place. And my friend that was in the car with me just laughed. Once I realized that what I was wearing might be perceived as dangerous, it wasn't funny to me. And it was something that she always kind of laughed about, being, take off your hoodie. Your mom was so funny, and it was not a fun experience for me.
Do you call yourself black or African American or Afro American? How do you describe yourself?
I describe myself as African American. Unfortunately, sometimes it's easier when people are describing a type of person to call them black. And it's just something that's always been, and that's a dangerous thought. Why? Because if you look at my skin color, I'm not black. I'm brown, right? And you get into this, I guess, negative connotation of black versus white.
If you look at any culture, media throughout the world, black is always perceived as evil, white's perceived as good.
White being pure, black being evil.
If you watch old cowboy picture, the bad guy wears a black hat, the good guy wears a white hat. Angels are always in white linen. Even like Christianity says, wash me pure, make me white again.
It's just, people start to see and relate these colors to the person's skin color and to the person's values and morality.
I really have learned to really dislike the term African American. And I'll tell you why. I am old enough to have seen the movement of the generation. I'm from northern Louisiana, and there was a point where we were happy with color. There was a point, seriously, when I was younger. There was a point, of course, when Negro became important. And there was a point when Afro-American became important. And then it was black. And then we went to African American. So I often wondered, man, what do people think about the different generations? And one of the stories I love telling, I'm in Oakland, California. I'm 14, so this is 1971 or 72. My father is no longer with us. My father passed away several years ago. My father couldn't say African American if you made him, if you forced him. He was not an educated man. He couldn't say African American. But I'm walking with him one day in Oakland. I'm 14, and my father says, "What's happening, black?" My father could say black. And from that point, I think, I always considered myself black.
When you're not American, you don't know. You know, like people in Africa, they think is extremely fabulous, and you can say there's nothing you can say to change their minds. Like they think is you are so lucky, it's totally you living it. And then you get here, you're like, where is the paradise?
I grew up right outside of New York City, north in a New York City suburb. My parents are Haitian, so I'm first generation Haitian American. I grew up in a community where I did not lack of my culture. Black people were everywhere. Every type of black people that spoke every different type of language you could think of, we were all kind of together. I didn't have to go far. I never felt. Zora Neale Hurston says that she feels most black thrown against a white wall. And I didn't feel those things until I grew up.
Being an African, I realized also off the start that I'm viewed differently by the white person or by the white person or by a non-black person as you're African, so you have a stronger work ethic. And I've heard it so many times, you're different from the black people here. Now, on the other hand, the more I had that, the more you could say either I used it to my advantage or went into a job knowing that, or other in a decision-making process or in a workplace, you can hear them talk about it. And so then you say, okay, so that's how you feel, that I might be, that I'm not the same or I have a different work ethic. Fine. But at the same time, I could turn around and say, okay, call me a nigger one more time and see how niggerish I'll act on you. Because that's really, they say, oh, well, I guess I could say it around you because you're not really a nigger, right? And I'm like, black people, I get, they say, well, do Africans really call themselves niggers? Do they identify with that? I teach Sunday school at church, and there's a guy named John, and his professor, college professor, was from Angola. And he told me, he's like, man, the first day of school, the professor walks in and he's like, I am the head nigger in church. And the whole class was like, can Africans really say that? You know, a lot of Africans try to emulate black Americans, but let's not kid ourselves. Who in the world doesn't? The black person in America has a chance to be anybody he wants to be or she wants to be. If you get over ancestry, because truthfully speaking, they picked the best out of Africa. Then it turned into breeding farms. So if you really want to look at it, you're in the best country in this century to do and become whoever you want to be.
I had to learn the Haitian national anthem growing up. And it says in it that it's basically Marchons Unis, and we're marching in unison, and it's where our whole model of our country is, with unity there's strength. I don't like when people like to discredit black people and say, oh, how come these other races could come into the country? Well, these other races could come into the country because, or other ethnicities, not even races, other ethnicities could come into the country and make their way because their skins is the same color. The little things that, hair color is something that could be easily changed. So somebody who's redhead could go brunette easy, and you forget they're Irish. Or Italian could go blonde and don't even, like, it's easy. It was easier for them to kind of make their way in the world and in America than with coming from a skin color where around the world is pretty much demonized. It is centuries of socialization that has to be undone, and I do give us credit because It's not like slavery ended 300 years ago.
We're not all on the same platform. You know, African Americans suffered so much injustice, it's unreal. You may say that it's, you know, it's been a long time ago, it's not happening now. Yes, cellular memory. But a lot of us don't know about cellular memory. So people are still reliving and replaying, and your subconscious mind remembers those things. So it is affecting you. And since we're all one, and we live in one universe, and we're really all one, we can help each other, because your problem is my problem. My problem is your problem. And if we can just think past just us or what we know now, what we understand, and think, you know, what other ways can I be more helpful? For me, it's hard to know for sure if this person is just being hateful because they're hateful, or is it because I'm black? I really just, I don't know. I know racism does exist, but the way I look at it, I can't be caught up with it. I'm gonna just keep getting better, because you can't, racism is so vast and so weird looking. I don't know what word to use to describe it. You can't get caught up. It is what it is. When you come across hate, you just have to find a way out calmly and get out of it. You know, learn how to calm yourself beforehand, before you get into situations. Just when you sit by yourself, learn what to do to calm yourself. That way you can get out of situations. My dad taught me that.
Have you ever had the talk with your kids?
No. I just think it will scare him, and I don't want him to step out in fear. You know, I do tell him to always remain calm and, you know, take care of yourself, remain calm. You know, this remaining calm is, I think, is so important.
We came here at 12. My brother Daniel was 16. And of course, hot summer day, car doesn't have AC. We're driving around shirtless. We get home. My dad is like, no, you can't do that. And when you get stopped, turn off the vehicle, put the key on the dashboard, pull out your insurance, put them on the dash, put your hands on the wheel. That is something that I was taught at a young age. Why? So then I also have that in my brain that I know you're gonna view me a certain way as soon as I walk through the door. And it affects everything that you do, mentally and in reality, because there is a real aspect to it, but then there's also a mental aspect to it. You wonder, or you at some point, unless you just say, you know what, fuck it, I believe I deserve this, I'm gonna do what I wanna do. I believe any room that I'm in or any place that I'm in, I was meant to be there. So, but then you ask yourself, am I worthy of that? Is the bank going to turn down that application? Is my landlord, or will this guy accept my lease application? You're trapped. You're caged. You're suffocating in a sense. You wanna praise me for my excellence or for my physical attributes, but criticize me for my mentality, for my rationality, for my individuality actually. So yeah, you feel trapped. You feel like you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything without somebody peering, somebody viewing it a certain way. So then you wonder, which opinion is mine?
I am able to fully experience the challenges of being black in America, and also able to fully experience the challenges of being an immigrant in America, and all the restrictions and policing associated with both of those identities. I think for many African diaspora, for many black people who come to the US to live from outside of the US, have to go through a process of becoming black. Sure, you would say, you would recognize your African descendants, in Trinidad, we also recognized every other thing that we might have in us. So we would count, oh, I also have, Indian ancestry, I also have Chinese ancestry, and all these things. People would count all of that. So nobody really, it wasn't that often that we refer to ourselves as one thing. We didn't have to check any box that said that. So it was never necessary. So it's in coming to the US and having to start checking those boxes is where that first question and that first battle happens, So me coming, I didn't like black necessarily because, back in the day it was an insult, right? It was talking as if having dark skin is a problem, but it was talking about, how dark your skin was. I couldn't check African American because I'm not American. So I always had that dilemma of what to check. I would initially check other, and then one time I was going for some, government document, and I left it blank, and the person in the window checked black for me. And I was like, but I left it blank on purpose. Why? Okay, if you say so, I guess that's what I need to check. And I don't blame her. I mean, look at me. I am black. And so, but it's a journey to get there, so.
Where do I call home? I'm stuck between two societies, 2 walls apart. To my father's land, my ancestry, the very blood that runs through me, tribes at war. A world, a culture, brothers and sisters I've never met. But I stay in Unit B, a place I'm harvesting the seeds planted in me. The very man I am today, American. I am a jungle within a jungle. A culture I've assimilated and accustomed to. A place I call home, but never find peace at night. And in the dead of night, I struggle to grasp what's within my might. I fight to justify what's my right, what can be, what makes me, where's my home. It's a struggle for identity because it's easy for me to say, yes, I'm African, I was born there, I lived there till I was 12, and came here. I still have family back there, I still have a brother who I left there, I don't know him, he's in his 40s now. I don't know him, never seen him since 98. My parents are still back there. But at the same time, I grew up here. The man, every dream of the man I wanted to become that made this person before you, I had it here. And then being an immigrant also, the law tells you this is not home, but your heart tells you this is home. The person you love tells you this is home. Your children tell you this is home. Your career tells you this is home. Your heart tells you this is home. But then your heart also tells you, is this really home? So where am I really?
No man's land.
No man's land.
To the naked eye, our light is much harder to catch. But to those of you who do see the flickers, the glint, the glow of this skin, I ask you to bury yourself like golden sands in our shoes and stride in the history that has colored it. To the white eye, brown skins meld and melt, often complementing and compelling, beckoning to come closer, to know more, to get lost in a grounded, earthy tone. What you see in shades and contours, we feel in pyramids and shackles. This skin does not always taste like chocolate. She is a complex flavor. Sweet, yes, but one must acquire a taste for the dust and dirt to reach that rich center. This skin has fought battles, and she has stories to tell.
colorism didn't exist in my family. I learned all of that outside, and it's so funny because I'm from a family where it can be so prevalent, where my sisters are very, very, very fair, and my grandmother is half Syrian, and a lot of my family members have mixed children. So, but it was where I remember being really young and meeting one of my cousins from Canada, and I have a lot of family that lives in Montreal and Quebec, and asking why she was white, and I was pretty sure that like I got hit for that. I'm pretty sure I got hit for that, and things like that never came out of my mouth again.
I'm sort of like what's her name? What's the name of that woman was in Seattle who was the head of the NAACP, but she was white? Dolezal.
Dolezal.
Yeah, me and Rachel like that. Once you go black, you don't go back. No, seriously. My family comes from a mixed heritage of French, Spanish, Native American, and of course, African. I think I was fortunate in that many times I was confused for white, or many times I was given the benefit of the doubt. But I know for a fact also that many times I was not, because I was darker than a white person. So therefore you were mixed, therefore you were black.
In many ways, people who look like I do have it sort of coming and going. We are often not black enough, or we're not quite white enough. And fortunately, at least for me, I'm exactly the way God intended me to be, freckles and all. I think in some respects that it has, being this fair skin has made it easier for me in some respects, because I think to the extent that people who might otherwise discriminate against people who don't know that I'm black don't discriminate against me because they don't know I'm black. On the other hand, it's been very difficult sometimes to feel like you are being recognized for who you are by members of your own community. So for example, if somebody wants sort of an iconic black person to go be on a panel to represent the black perspective, I sometimes don't get called because I don't look that black, right? So it's kind of ironic, right? Because I have a lot to say about the black experience, but sometimes I don't get asked to provide that perspective because I don't look iconically, typically dark enough to provide that token experience. Think of the irony in that, right?
One of the things that I'm aware of as I began to grow up in a very segregated town, segregated because there were only people, Americans of African descent, is that within my own community, there was what I call now self-hatred, because I am fair-skinned and have always been that way. I became the target of bullying by some of my classmates who were darker skinned. I would go out in an attempt to stop the girls from beating me up, is go out and sit in the sun, thinking that would make me a little darker, and then I would get burned. It was a long, ugly story, but then it got to the point that, I just said, you know what, I'm through with this. I'm tired of this kind of tension that we have here. And so that kind of hate toward me was something that I had never thought that I would experience, and it was something that even to this day, now that I have words for it, I'm not sure that I fully understand, but I can't speak for other people, but I know that it's real. And I know that my kids sometimes would say that I have cheap skin because it's so fair. And so that lineage from, that descendants from white slave owners and the rape of black slave women, but we never talk about. They act like this is something that people did because it was out of love. And it might have been some kind of love, but it's also out of not having a choice. And so my lineage on my mother's side kind of came from white slave owners and African women. And so now that I understand all that as an adult, it kind of makes sense because of the oppression that darker slaves experience and darker individuals have experienced over the time.
I was very self-conscious about my darkness. Even in college, I got an internship, a paid internship at the NBC affiliate in Dallas. And I was all excited that I finally got my foot in the door, because getting your foot in the door, as you well know, is the toughest part. And you know how it is. If you show any competence or hunger in news, you're going to get promoted. So I got promoted and worked my way up, and I had a person in a managerial position tell me to my face. He looked at me and said, "You're too dark to be on TV." And he said, "You're too nice." He thought I was too nice and too dark. And that, man, right here. And then I thought about it. I was like, that's just one person's opinion. And so if I had listened to him, I wouldn't have lived my dream of, my 7th grade dream of being the next Max Robinson. The first person I ever saw who looked like me doing the news was Max Robinson. So when I saw him in the 7th grade doing news, I was like, that's what I want to do. I knew. So, but anyway, if I had listened to that manager, I wouldn't be here.
So if somebody were to knock on that door right now, an alien from a whole other planet, and they'd never seen color, they can't see, they don't know what color is, no idea. How would you describe to them your skin tone?
Okay, so they've never seen color, they're colorblind. I would ask the alien, I say, have you ever tasted chocolate? You know how good it tastes? Now imagine that's what I look like. I look as good as that tastes. That's what I would tell an alien.
Our skin absorbs sunlight. You know what else absorbs sunlight? Plants. You know what that means? This world wouldn't survive without plants. We're like that. We're that powerful. Our skin absorbs sunlight and protects us.
Light absorbing, dark, smooth.
Warm smoothness. Is smoothness a word?
Oh, I am Cocoa Brown. If I say I'm milk chocolate, baby, so.
How would I describe my skin tone? Different than. That's a tough question. Yeah, I guess I would just describe myself as different, unique. I like unique.
Well, first of all, I hope aliens don't come to Earth while I'm here, because I'm not ready to. It's enough to deal with the white folks I deal with every day that have to deal with aliens, understanding of the differences of people based upon the melanin they have in their skin. That's going to be a very difficult conversation to have with people who look, I suspect, very differently than I do. So I'm going to have to think about that. How would I describe me?
I would say that it is warm, very rich in melanin. Are they blind to all color or just skin color?
All color.
That makes it very hard. I like to say honey-coated chocolate, but how do you know what color honey-coated chocolate is unless you can visualize chocolate with, and that's, I think, part of an India Arie song.
I would play India Arie's, I think she's got brown skin. She plays that song. I'd ask them to listen to it, and I'd tell them, close your eyes. And what would I tell them? Let me see.
I would say, you know, I am a humanoid. I basically look like most of the people on Earth, except we come in various shades of tones on our skin.
I'd say, picture you're in a furniture store. And they probably wouldn't know what that is, but maybe I'd take them to one. And I'd say, run your hands across some kind of burgundy, some kind of deep brown. And I'd say, what does that feel like? And they'd describe it, and I'd say, that's probably how I look.
Our eyes can be anywhere from jet black to light blue, to gray, to brown, to hazel. We have all of these varieties of skin tones and eye shapes and hair texture. And so we're very unique in that we can be any or all of those things.
We're all unique, we're all different, we're beautiful.
Well, I would probably say that my skin is very pure, right? And I guess I'm thinking pure because regardless of kind of what we're going through, whether it's sickness, whether it's health, whether it's being frustrated, whether it's being angry, whether we're embarrassed, our skin stays exactly the same. I would basically say it's a pure, unchanging element.
I will say brown.
But they don't know color. They don't know brown. They don't know what that means.
I will tell them not to worry about it.
How would I describe my skin tone? Okay. What other senses do they have? Because if I describe myself in relative terms to Earth, where so we have to have a reference point. If I say, well, I would say I'm dark chocolate or my skin has been kissed by that. Do they know color?
They don't know color. They have everything else. They can smell, hear, taste.
Then color is irrelevant to who I am at that point.
This is my original poem, Color Theory, written by Kelly Blake Fallon. The moon looks the same in Arima, Trinidad as she does in Austin, Texas. The sun is different. Strikes the earth at a different angle, rubs the skin a different way, sort of slanted, sort of mean against melanin, like history. Tropical sun burns stealth, charms you into a darker shade, leaves you peeling off layers, insisting, under the skin we're all the same, while reminding there's no light without shadow, and the longer I stay in the sun, the more I become a shadow. According to physics, black is not a color. Black is the absence of color, the absence of light. Must be why I felt invisible for so long. I didn't expect to change, but assertive becomes necessary when to submit is not an option. I had to protect myself. Years of too different to be black, too black to be white, too foreign, too snobby, too poor, too weird, too much seasoning in my food, too much lewd in my dance, not enough assimilation or acculturation. But there's a drag queen in Austin who reminds me every so often that I am beautiful. And there's an aging woman in Arima who reminds me every so often that I am loved. There's no smile without teeth. And somewhere on that long journey between Trinidad and Texas, I learned to bear mine. I can be sharp sometimes, like Texas sun. Speak knife point words that drip red. With my truth, it is because I am human and woman and island and black. And somewhere between there and here, black stopped being a bad word, and I learned to use my words. According to color theory, black is the exhaustive combination of all colors and can absorb all light. That must be why I have become everything I need and learned how to receive love. It's brilliant how black can be so many things, how I am so many things. But the moon looks the same. Hanging high on dark nights, her consistency is comforting. She has the same face in Trinidad and in Texas. I wonder if I do as well. But I know one thing, that I do not love differently elsewhere, that my heart is as consistent as the moon, and no matter where I go, there is one face I will always recognize.
There's no one way to show the man that you ain't playing no more games. Put a fist up in the air and hold it right there as howling protest put the man to shame. By any means necessary, maybe you gotta do what must be done. Sign a letter, make a call, start a sit-in, cause a stall, hunger strike it till the deed's undone. What does your resistance look like? What does your resistance look like? Be a rebel, find a cause, start a boycott, question laws, use your voice, learn the facts, be bold. Take a knee and just be still, tell the truth and keep it real, register and then go cast your vote. Pray to Jesus, form a change, save your money, dance for rain, do for others what you want for you. Or just love your fellow man, be his keeper when you can, fight for right and baby, see it through. Volunteer, donate your time, don't give up and don't resign, demonstrate, sing your kumbaya. Bumper, stick it where
I have several friends, some of my very good friends that don't understand racism, and they're very tired of the discussion, and they can't really relate to my experience, right? In fact, they even get frustrated with me when I bring it up. And I'm like, well, don't deny my experience. If you don't understand it, say you don't understand it, but don't tell me that what I'm experiencing is made up. And I've told them that, you know what? You guys are my friends, but I still consider you guys racist, right? Because if they're standing on an escalator, right, and racism is moving downwards on the escalator, if they're standing there and they're not actively trying to go the other way, they're contributing to that racist society, right? And I want more of my friends and more of the people around me to be more active in speaking for these things that are happening in our society that people claim are not happening.
In a lot of my classes will talk about how the binary and the construction of categories is fundamental, I guess, to our existence. I mean, we talked about the Bible. He said, in the beginning, God created the light and the dark and set up, it kind of shows how from the beginning we established these binaries, and that's how we understand things. I mean, you look at non-binary individuals and how they're being perceived and how difficult it is for people to imagine some kind of place where people don't fit in easily. So I think asking people to asking people at all to kind of, understand or try to think of race in a new way is a big task, and I'm not sure if that's something that can be achieved.
There needs to be healing. And black people have been trying to heal. And yes, black people need to heal. That's important. The African diaspora, black people here in this country, black people need to heal. There's been a lot of damage meted out to us for hundreds of years based on the fact that we are black, the fact that we are African diaspora, the fact that we look a certain way. But one cannot heal if the wounds keep getting reopened. If you cut yourself, if you get a cut on your skin, say it's a high traffic area like your hand, then every time you hit that hand against something and it reopens that scab, that thing is not going to heal. It will just keep getting reopened. And every time we see violence, every time we experience microaggressions, every time we walk through this damaged world trying to heal and not being allowed to, that's not on us. So in order for this world to heal, in order for there to be some semblance of equity and justice, then if you're not black, you need to heal yourself, because your damage is interfering with my ability to heal on a daily basis.
With all the changes in the world that are going on right now, I mean, we just had our first black president, and right after that, I feel like we're being punished. And it's a weird feeling, right? You know, you have something that just elevates you. You get this figure that you can aspire to be right after being told that now everything must change and we must be great again, like we weren't great already. It's a weird feeling. I just hope for something better. And sometimes you need something worse to see that.
For me, before anyone can see me as who I am, the individual Tia, my hope, my sincere hope, is that we first begin to be seen as human. Basically, I need that to first happen. That is my hope, because I do not feel that that has happened yet. Once that happens, then see Tia, see the hard worker, the hopefully future director, the lover, the goofball. See that person first, see me as human.
My main thing has always been to be perceived as me, as Michael Craig Trotty, not to be seen as that black guy or to be seen as a little brother or anything like that. I just want to be given that same shot to be me rather than represent an entire race all the time. That can be very strenuous.
I want all of us, including those of us in the black community who don't know that much about another culture or another community, to be patient, to learn about them, to understand where they're coming from, to try to see things from their perspective, and to understand more about them. I think we are often too quick, all of us, to judge based on the outward appearance of someone, or the clothing that they're wearing, or the kind of jewelry, or how many tattoos they have, or whether they got off a bus or not. None of those things tell you anything except somebody got off a bus. It doesn't tell you anything except somebody has a tattoo, but it doesn't tell you what's in their heart, doesn't tell you what's in their head, doesn't tell you what they're capable of, doesn't tell you what they've done, how many lives they've saved, how many lives they may have taken. It tells you nothing except what you can see. And if all you know about somebody is what you can see, you don't know very much.
If I wish anything for black folks going forward, is for us to stop calling ourselves African American, because I don't know anything about Africa, only what I see on a PBS. I shouldn't say that.
We all think it.
I shouldn't say that.
But we all think it. What do you love about being black?
Everybody wants to be like me. The whole world wants to be like me. That's the truth.
People say we're extra, and I'm like, you're just not extra. You're just not enough. I'm like, we're not extra. You're just not enough. Because there's something about the existence of nothing would be as funny. I don't think I would smile as much. Like the memes I see memes and I'm like, I love black people so much. I love black people. I'm like, who made this? I'm like, who did this? And I'm like, black women. I'm like, why? Like, it's just this way we see that we don't have easy lives, and we can find humor in everything. We make jokes about everything. We make jokes about things that aren't even funny.
I love being a black woman. I don't know what it is that I love about it, but I feel right about it. I feel like I am in the right skin. I am in the right color. I love having my color, my melanin. I love the history of black people. It is very rich and it goes very deep. it has some shaky areas, but I wouldn't want to trade it for anything else. Like, I love being black.
Black culture has affected every aspect of life on planet Earth. If we're talking about any society beyond, even in a third world country, but any group of people beyond, let's say, the indigenous people, there's no culture in this world that you can say black culture hasn't affected.
We're the only people who could really have endured what we endured and still be here. A lot of people kind of get, wiped out in the process. And sure, there's been systemic things in place to kind of try to keep us down. But when you look at how dominant black people can be when they're given enough opportunity, because they're never handed opportunities, kind of have to create it generation after generation. But if you look at how dominant we can be, I like that I'm a part of that. I like that I'm a part of some of the greatest minds and greatest entertainers who've left a lasting impression on the world.
I love being black. I love, I'll say the music. I think it adds so much to our community. I play the saxophone, alto, and just being able to kind of rock out the blues or jazz. Sometimes it feels like it's something inherent, it's something intrinsic inside of us, some kind of beat, some kind of rhythm.
Well, my family celebrates Kwanzaa, and part of Kwanzaa rituals are you bring different songs, and so there are no common Kwanzaa songs. Like, no household does Kwanzaa songs all together that I know of anyway, and I've gone to many celebrations and all the songs are different. And so a song, I don't even know where my dad got it from, but that we sing is basically look at whomever you're black and beautiful. We even do it for the white people when they come in the room. So are people who aren't, but they know that they're in a black space. But it goes, look at Amina, she's black and beautiful. Look at Amina, she's black and beautiful. Look at Amina, she's black and beautiful. Saying hello, Amina, and you say hey, you do your jig. We're black and beautiful. And then at one point we say, look at everybody, we're black and beautiful.
I want people to take the time to get to know each other. I want people to take the time to understand where they come from. I want people to take the time to really understand who it is they're dealing with in whatever context they have to deal with them. Whether that's in the justice system or at the grocery store. Take the time to understand what's going on. How can I be helpful? What can I do for you? What can you do for me? How can we move together and forward and not backward? That's what I want.
I need y'all to listen to me. Black Bodies Project. Here we go.
Power to the people living in the world today. Time to put it all together. Time to throw the hate away. Or when you witness injustice, see a crime against your fellow man, raise your voice, your fist, your vibe, and watch the whole world take a stand. Close your eyes, see with your heart and soul. Free your mind, let true love take control.
Racism, prejudice, bigotry, separation, red, blue. Enough. It's time to put it together, people, and we have the power.
Black bodies, black premier and black goddess.
grows. Incandescent light, too bright for this time. Keep your eye on the Holy Ghost. Black bodies, black premier, and black goddess, stifled as he grows, silenced as she blows. Incandescent light, too bright